Many of us take the conveniences of everyday life for granted, but the digital infrastructure that powers our modern world needs strong cyber defenses to keep us moving. Despite the growing number of cybersecurity tools on the market, sophisticated cyber attacks that often result in catastrophic business outcomes are on the rise. Suffering a significant breach seems inevitable, but it doesn't have to be. BlueVoyant converges internal and external cyber defense capabilities into an outcomes-based, fully immersive platform called Elements. Elements provides the rock-solid technology, telemetry, and expertise you need to defend against the world's most sophisticated cyber attacks. Core MDR rapidly detects and responds to incidents in your own environment, delivering a world-class, 24/7 fully managed SOC experience. Terrain 3PR accurately identifies and enables the resolution of vulnerabilities and issues in your third-party ecosystem, enabling you to manage distributed risk across your extended attack surface. Sky DRP goes outside the wire to identify and take down threats across the open, deep, and dark web, shutting down threat actors at the earliest stages of the cyber kill chain. Liquid PS is our elite professional services unit that delivers the expertise you need to build proactive cyber defenses and respond when incidents occur. Elements can be deployed as independent solutions or together as a full-spectrum cyber defense platform that stops attackers in their tracks. Built by experts, seamlessly integrated into your operations, and elegantly managed. We are rock-solid cyber defense. We are BlueVoyant.
Hi everyone, my name is Tal Blaustein. I'm the COO of BlueVoyant International, and today I'm going to talk about supply chain cyber risk. What is it, what are the challenges, and what we can do with it. Before I will dive into it, I would like to present our company, BlueVoyant. In our company, we have 4 products, or 4 elements as we call them. The first one is BlueVoyant Core, our managed detection and response services. In this element, what we are doing is protecting the digital assets and the environments of our clients. The second one is BlueVoyant Liquid, our professional services. And what we are doing here is helping our clients improve their cyber posture. The third one is BlueVoyant Terrain, our third-party risk management service. And this is our solution to everything that I will present today. And the last one is BlueVoyant Sky, or digital risk protection services. And this is where we discover what the threat actors are doing directly to our clients' digital assets. And now let's dive into the subject itself. What you can see here is how usually CISOs and CIOs look at their organization or their ecosystem. Usually, how they divide it is putting their company in the middle and around it, all of their suppliers and partners. In addition, they are usually divide the different suppliers into tiers, where tier 1 or maybe tier 1 and tier 2 are the most critical suppliers to the business. Most people believe that if tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers are the most critical one for the business, it's probably the case for the cyber as well. But the truth is that there is no really connection between how crucial the supplier is to the business or how crucial the supplier is for the technology, than how crucial the supplier is for the cyber posture of the organization. And in order to explain it, let's see how threat actors look at the same ecosystem. As you can see, the threat actors basically see the same. It's the same ecosystem with the same companies, but there is no any kind of division into tiers. The threat actors doesn't really care about how the CISO, the CIO, or anyone else divide the suppliers into tiers. The threat actors only care about how we can hack into the organization and what is the easiest way to do it. And the easiest way is not always in the obvious places as you think about it. So if you have a very critical supplier, but is relatively protected, probably this is not the route that the attacker will choose. The attacker will go into an easier place where he can attack very easily and from there jump into your organization. Another way of looking at it is to calculate the risk level. What you can see in the right side is that the majority of the company are not in tier 1 and tier 2. They are in the rest of the tiers. And if you calculate the level of risk in the other tiers, tier 3 until tier N, the level of risk there is much more than the combination of tier 1 and tier 2 together. And that's basically show us that just taking care of tier 1 and tier 2 is not enough. In addition, usually, according to our experience, tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers are well-defended and well-known brands. Probably the risk or the issue is not really there. And you need to look at it in other places. And you really need to understand how you defend your organization from all of them and not just the critical ones that you can detect. As always, everybody knows the say that you are only as good as your weakest link. As we are always saying in the supply chain area, you are only strong as your weakest supplier. It's true to basically anything in life. But as we all know, the fact that something is critical or something is important doesn't mean that you don't have challenges. And we obviously understand that there are many challenges for any kind of business when they are trying to deal with the supply chain risk. As always, it starts with the resources. Any kind of business will never have enough resources to do everything, and they need to prioritize. And what we are seeing is that sometimes the supply chain risk is not in the top priority of the company because each one wants to deal with their own issues before they are dealing with others. Another challenge is the blind spot that we have. Sometimes it can be the blind spot of we are not really understanding the connection between certain supplier and our company or our technology. Sometimes it can be a blind spot of unknown supplier because there is some team that use this kind of supplier and nobody else knows about it. Another way of looking on this resource and blind spot issue is unprioritized and scalability problem. Maybe you know all the suppliers that you have, but you have very small team and you can't really scale it until they will be able to work on all the issues and all the suppliers that we have. And the last and not the least is dealing with unresponsive suppliers. Maybe you detect an issue with the supplier, you understand exactly what's going on, but the supplier doesn't want to do anything and he doesn't want to fix it. And then basically you're facing into a problem that you need to understand what to do. You need to understand how, in one hand, you are keeping your business and making sure that it won't affect it. And in another hand, making sure that the risk will be as minimal as you can. And this is what we are going to talk about in the next slide. It's important to understand that regarding all of the challenges that I've just talked about, supply chains attack is the new norm. We saw it very significantly last year, but we are keep seeing it even if you may not hear on big attack in the media, but it's happening all the time. Almost every attack that we are seeing start with stalling credentials of a supplier, or maybe just hack to an email of a supplier, and all of a sudden there is some kind of attack on your organization. When something like that will happen, obviously I hope it won't, but if something like this will happen, the CISO and the CIO will need to answer a very, very hard question. Like, what did you do in order to minimize the chance that something like that will happen? Which of your companies are exposed? or what can you do with it? And eventually you will need to have some kind of answer on what your company is going to do about it in the future to make sure that it won't happen again. When we are looking on the market and what other companies are doing, the situation is not good, to say the least. Basically, most of the companies that we discussed with them had some kind of breach from a third party, but most of the companies are not really monitoring what's going on with their third party. They are not monitoring on time, and most of them, what they are really doing is just a one-time questionnaire during the onboarding process, and that's about it. That is not enough, because as we all know, the cyber posture of a company can change with a matter of minutes. If an administrator will change something, and all of a sudden the entire environment is open to the internet without any protection, that's the questionnaire that you did in the beginning of your engagement won't really help. And the idea is not just to making sure that you will know what in theory they will do. The idea is to know it in time and to take some protective measures in order to make sure nothing will happen to your company if something happened to them. Now let's talk a little bit about how we can address the hard challenges and what we can do with everything that we discussed. The first part is moving from risk assessment or risk identification that some companies are doing today into risk reduction. What I think most of companies did, for sure that most of companies are doing today, is risk assessment. This is the questionnaires or self-assessment process that everyone is asking from their suppliers. Most of the companies ask for it only on the onboarding process when they start to work with a new supplier. Some companies ask it once a year or every 6 months. That's good. That's good, and you need to keep doing it, because this is the only way of you to really be aware of what this supplier will do when they will identify an attack. So this is important, because you want to make sure that the supplier will know what he's doing when something bad will happen. But that's not enough, because you can never know if the supplier will be able to attack or to detect an attack when it will happen, and how fast it will be able to act. So what several companies did after is to move from risk assessment into risk identification. That means that they can identify the risk of their suppliers, but that's it. They didn't do anything around it. So you will get some kind of report on a scan that someone did on their environment. You can understand that there is risks there, but then you need to understand what to do with it, and you need to decide it by your own. And obviously that's not enough. The fact that you identify the risk, that doesn't mean that you fix the problem. The next level, and what we believe that every company needs to do, is risk reduction. And that means that you don't just identify the risk. You understand the risk, you work with the supplier in order to remediate the risk and making sure it won't have any kind of effect on your company. This is very, very important. This is something that you need to do as an ongoing process, because as we said, risk can be created anytime, and attacker will identify the risk much faster than anyone else. So now let's talk about 5 steps that you can do in order to protect your supply chain. It's obviously not enough, but that's the beginning of helping you address this issue. The first one is really to change the contract and what you can do with it. We believe that each company needs to have the right in the contract in order to understand what's going on in their vendors or their suppliers, and talk with their suppliers when they identify something like that. It needs to be part of the contract, so the supplier won't be able to say that he is not working with you on that. The second part is understanding the risks. The risk can be in 3 levels. The first one is obviously at the technology level. Well, you need to understand how you communicate or how data is flowing between you and your supplier. The second part is the cyber risk. You need to understand what is the cyber risk from this specific supplier and what it can create to you. And the third one is to understand the business effect of this supplier. And I will give an example. Most people might think that the biggest risk that a company can have is from a supplier that has a direct API to your environments or your systems. But the truth is that it's not always the case. Sometimes these APIs are really protected and nothing can go into them. But you may have some kind of a broker that the only thing that you have with them is emails. That's it, nothing more than that. But the protection that this broker has on their emails is really, really low. An attacker can just attack this email server or this email service, go into it and send an email in behalf of your broker. What will happen is that your procurement team will receive an email that says, please transfer money instead of the regular account into this and that account. And all of a sudden, your company will lose a lot of money. Unfortunately, we were witness to several incidents like this where companies lost millions of dollars just because of that. And what we believe is that you should be aware of the risk that this kind of broker is creating to you, and then you can take some remediation steps, like say to your procurement team, never trust an email, always call them, etc., etc. There is many things you can do. Not all of them are just technologies. The third one is real-time monitoring. As we said, the cyber posture of a company can change with a matter of minutes. This is why we believe that you need to monitor the status of your suppliers all the time. And you need to do it as an ongoing process, identify what are the risks, and as we say, take remediation steps in order to make sure that it won't affect your company. The next one is to really understand which kind of data or which kind of visibility you have in order to maximize the value. I guess that you have many things that you know about your supplier, that you know what they are doing from the data that you receive from them, but you just need to look at the right place. And this is very important because understanding what's going on and what is transferred between you and your suppliers can really help you and anyone that helping you dealing with this risk to really understand the effect that this supplier has and maximize the value of what you are doing with them and how you protect your environment. And the last one is resources to remediate the problem. When someone detects a vulnerability in a supplier, you need to have the resources in order to work with the supplier about it and making sure that they will remediate it. As we said, we understand that it is challenging and resources will always be a problem. And this is why we believe that a third party like us can really help you deal with it. That's it from my side. I hope it helped you understand a little bit more about the risk that suppliers can create to your business and what you can do with it. Thank you very much.